Well, how do you describe it? That we have aware civil society groups in Goa, but not enough aware citizenry.
See, the thing is, we have got our democracy. It's like ready-made. You don't have to bother about it. You vote once in 5 years. So people say, "Muge kaam zale," and whoever is put in the chair, it's his problem to solve it. So if he has 190 panchayats, that he is the minister, he should do it. The system here is the 73rd Amendment has provided for people to participate. There are biodiversity committees, there are waste management committees, so many things have been put in place. The point is that people feel that Makira Kolda, I'm very busy, so I don't want to get involved. Now, in a complex situation like this, you cannot have democracy, you cannot have development, you cannot have urbanization, and you say, "Autitunna." It has to be with your involvement. And I think what is lacking in Goa is that, see, after people come out of college, say even those who are the senior citizens, we have about 12% in the state now, there is no awareness, there is no discussion on pollution, what are the levels of pollution, what is, good, bad. This is not happening. And I think unless we start addressing this, and I think this is a good year for the government also to look at, because the United Nations is very clearly directing governments, through their protocols and charters to act locally. You see, it's a global problem, but they have to act locally. So it's not just about, like Minister said, we given extra money. That's very important, to put money where your mouth is. So that's what is done. But the question is, are they able to, at a ground level, make that money work for the village? So these are the challenges, I think, are very important. And citizens need to get, and as you mentioned about the housing society, you see, housing societies, when they are formed, it's not about just the, maintenance of the building. One of the first things there in their aims and objectives to work for the welfare of the flat owners. Now, air pollution is also an issue which affects them. So, I think the 1,005 or maybe 2,000 housing societies need to really look at, what role they can play in and what intervention they can make.
Ek Kadal, I want to ask you, because of this big projects, huge development that is happening in the state. If we take two concepts, one is environment impact assessment and environment and social impact assessment. As a government, what would you prefer at the forefront, EIA or ESI?
I think environment impact assessment is very much necessary, because it is by invoking scientific principles that it is done, looking at different parameters which will actually affect the society. Whereas at the same time, you also need, as rightly mentioned here, the involvement of society itself. And people at the grassroots level have to think, have to be educated, and have to decide as to what is good for them, what should be prevented from going bad. A situation which is good from turning really bad in a sense that they can't even breathe proper air. Not all areas in Goa would be impacted by this, like Murmungao is one taluka which is affected because of the port and the cargo being handled there. Similarly, you have a company like Zuari Industries Limited which handles ammonia for the making of fertilizers. God forbid nothing has ever happened in Goa wherein ammonia has leaked. But that is also one of the most dangerous thing. And what is the dangerous thing happening? If ammonia leaks, people breathe to die. So that sort of situations have not reached because we have taken anti-pollution measures. While talking of anti-pollution measures, I also want to say here, you look at the number of vehicles increasing in Goa, whether it is four-wheelers, whether it is two-wheelers, whether it is heavy vehicles. Look at the number of people living in Goa. At the same time, every household, I think, has more than one vehicle, if you look at the average. And then it is something which is ultimately a necessity for every citizen. whether he travels in a bus, whether he has a scooter, you have in the families, if they own scooters, you'll have 2-3 such vehicles, each member of the family having them. Cars, you'll have them having 2-3 cars. But we cannot do without that. So what is important is that we ensure that we get those vehicles which do not cause pollution. And now you have electrical cars shortly going to be being made available in this country. A lot of importance is being given. I feel that Goa has to start on a very strong footing as far as electrical vehicles are concerned. We cannot wait for a level what has happened like in the capital of this country, that is Delhi or Bombay for that matter, or the big metros. We can't allow that sort of situation to reach here and then to think what we will do about containing air pollution. We have to act now and we have to act earnestly. But as far as I am concerned, I know we are seized of this totally, and we will take measures. One last thing I want to say, you should also realize in Goa what happens is sometimes if there is a problem, it gets more compounded when it's not a problem to that extent also, which actually creates a confusion even as regards air pollution. For the size of Goa, how many NGOs do we have? Thousands of them. So everyone plays his own role and always not entirely in the interest of the betterment of the citizens. So this also causes more confusion, and it creates a sort of a slight doubt as to the steps in decision making, as to what is the reality, because they blow it out of proportion. When anything blown out of proportion, and when you are taking the right decision, your citizens will feel no, it may not be the right decision. It may be it is a wrong decision being taken. So this one has to act with a balance. Everything should be a good balancing act by the powers that be. And by powers that be, I don't mean only the government. It means every citizen who is empowered.
I asked this question basically because intertwining all these issues. Because when we speak about EIA and ESIA, when we spoke about mining, there is an environment issue and there is an employment issue. When we spoke about coal, there is an environment issue, and when there was environment issue, employees of the port trust came forward and said that it is our employment issue. So EIA or ESIA, Milind Bhai, what would you prefer as a professional?
But there is no preference as such. Both are important. I think they go hand in hand. But before I, answer this question, I have one more issue. As to the genesis of the problem is basically coming about a need and greed. Okay, I think that's where the problem actually arises from. Till it is a need, things are okay, we provide, we do things. But any intervention we do, and it becomes greedy. I am not saying for monetary sense also. Even the level of infrastructure, the scale of infrastructure that is happening in Goa today, does Goa want this scale of infrastructure is a question that I keep on asking myself. Can we scale down our development a little bit? Because these have got connotations with, pollution. It's basically, it's a web. It is, it is the entire ecosystem. Everything gets affected by that. And I think if we clearly define our need and our greed, I think these things, definitely there are national importance issues, there are local importance issues, and we have to take a prudent view on this. So I feel that this is where the genesis. And when you're talking of a environmental impact assessment and a social cost benefit ratio that we normally work out, definitely man is superior. We don't think, when you're talking of, it's a trade-off. See, when you're talking of social cost benefit, it's a trade-off. But it should not be at the cost of environment. That is my view on this. You definitely do something. Now, for example, mining. Now, if the mining infrastructure which was there found an appropriate adaptive reuse, the same infrastructure could have been used for this thing which was the people in power were not receptive to. And that's why I think the mining issue, I think they took only mining. If the same infrastructure that mining was there was used for something else with the same infrastructure, no one thought of that. So basically I think we require to think more intelligently on these issues.
when we talk of environmental impact assessment, I think over the years the bar has been lowered consistently. I don't know to what extent it's going to be lowered in the future, but EIAs may not solve our problems. EIAs also fudged. You look at the recent judgment of the Supreme Court against Mopa Airport. EIA report, I don't know if anybody has read it, but there was one sentence in the EIA report which was taken up by the Supreme Court judges. The site consists of very few trees and mainly shrubs. And then the application and permission was granted for cutting of 54,000 trees. So I leave it to you whether that EIA was done in a very appropriate or a proper manner, or whether it was fudged. The fudging came out when the Supreme Court ruled against it, and this is the one small few words which changed the entire approach to the EIA. Goa government is going to pay a huge penalty because of that, because Goa government is the project proponent. If I'm right, 550,000 trees have to be planted to replace those 55,000 trees. So that's going to be 100 crores expense to the Goa government. Rest, I don't want to speak of what are the other impacts. Now, when we talk of an EIA vis-a-vis what is right, what is wrong, we look at the green building rating system. We have a very appropriate and holistic approach to sustainable buildings. I'll touch upon what we do in the construction phase. In the construction phase, dust mitigation is very, very important. Dust mitigation, suppression, how do you suppress dust? One would be by barricading. Second would be by spraying of water on the loose earth. Your roads within the complex during construction have to be tarred. Your soil which is excavated has to be covered. So this is one way how green building principle during the construction phase would reduce dust pollution. Then we look at building materials. Our use of building materials, we have to use salvage materials, we have to use recycled materials. Again, what Milind speaks, recycled material. It's not garbage, it's not waste, it is a resource. So green building material looks at this aspect even in the material which we use in the buildings. Post operations, we are looking at energy efficiency. When we design a green building, the most important thing is how do we seal, or how do we protect, or how do we, the building envelope, how do we help work with the building envelope to reduce the heat which is going to ingress into the building. Once we look at this aspect, you are reducing the energy load which is going to be used in the building. Air conditioning would be less. Your lighting load we can reduce by using more light, less heat into the building. Appropriate glass can be used. If we look at these two aspects, we would be able to cut our energy use by about 30 to 40%. Cutting energy use means thermal energy. 65% of the energy used in India is thermal energy. You cut down use of energy in the building, you are reducing the load on the thermal plants. Air pollution is reduced. This is one of the biggest and most important aspects which we don't look at while designing buildings. Heat island, the building envelope and energy use. This is the post-operative phase. I already spoke about solid waste management. I spoke of organic waste management. So when you talk of an EIA, with the bar being lowered, Green Building Council ratings would help you reduce the impact of a building on its environment. That would be sustainable buildings. Now coming to social impact assessment, employment would not be the only thing what would be considered in a social impact assessment. For example, when we put up a big factory or a big shopping mall or whatever, what happens to the residents around? How would the impact of that commercial activity impact the society? These are things what have to be studied in the social impact assessment report. I don't know if people actually have the capacity or the understanding what a social impact assessment is. So I would also say that yes, it is very important, but we have to develop proper methods where we would study the impact of on the society.
I think any big project, infrastructure project, gets in a lot of economical changes. Look at the highway project. We have to look at the both good sides and bad sides for environment and also for society. both are temporary in nature. So you cut the trees, you destroy a lot of biodiversity, but at the same time you are building a road, you are creating jobs for people, you are making travel faster, you are giving impetus to a lot of industries to come in and reach people faster. So I think both the things are very important. But in terms of assessment, we have to look at how much would be the positive impact, how much would be the negative impact. And if you judge it at that, I think that would be a better way of looking at both EIA and both ESIA.
Yeah, as Milind Bob said, they go hand in hand. We can't separate them. Any social, first environmental impact, and then the society comes. There may be, environmentally not much impact, but socially it may have impact. For example, someone was talking about a shopping mall or something is coming. It's going to affect especially the culture of the society which is around. This is very important. I have also seen wherever these 6-lane highways have gone, and now actually they have barricades. The village is divided on either side of the road. It's actually a big cultural barrier where there was absolutely no division. Now they have to go far away, even to meet their own cousins or anyone. These are certain impacts which will be there. This is one side. Of course, probably you are talking about the employment related issues. They will be there with new things coming. We also adapt. We go for new employment opportunities. That's not a big deal in the sense, unless we are actually working on this one. So that's my take.
Actually, if you see now as part of the Government of India process, even for the central funding to panchayats, the training program has started now on social audits. So I feel again here, if you see, there is a responsibility on the citizen to look at those reports that are being done, whether it's the social impact or the environmental impact, whether citizens really look at what is being written in that report. Now, one very important thing I think is required now is training of citizens, like in other countries where funding has been given. The government encourages citizens to be the auditors or the examiners, or to look into whether the project has been done. And one example I would give you for this, you see in the Panchayat Act it says that vigilance committees must be appointed. But there is a circular which says that the government of Goa will appoint the vigilance committees, so not the Panchayat. Till date, no government, all governments that have come and gone, and even presently, have appointed a vigilance committee. So what I'm saying is that the process of the responsibility of the citizen will come if you have capacity building. If I look at the district magistrate's order, which says this have to be done, there has to be a light there has to be barricading. If I do not know what is to be done there, when I go and check it out in the night, I will find there's, it's okay. Some red tape is put there. It's okay. So similarly, you look at bigger projects, these systems are now part and parcel. Citizens have to be trained, and citizens have to come forward to be trained and do this task. To say that, Tere Korungna and he's responsible, fine. But there's an equal opportunity given to the citizenry to intervene, to point out, and that's why, of course, today if you see on the Monday newspaper, most of our Gram Sabhas have become Garam Sabhas. But they have to go beyond that, to really qualitatively be critical, analytically be critical of what is going wrong. Not to just, raise just the noise levels. And and I think that the time has come. In fact, if I just got intimation now that because of the GPDP, Gram Panchayat Development Program, the social audit training sessions have started for all the village development committees. And I think in 7 months' time, the health department is going to go to social audit. That means the the entire health infrastructure, doctors, nurses, etc., will have to sit across the table, and citizens will have to make an assessment of how the work is done, etc. So I think, in this entire change that is coming in, there's a huge responsibility on civil society. And I think if we don't seize the moment, then we have nobody else to blame.
I'll open it for all of you. If anyone has any question, please tell to whom you are addressing it, and then we can seek the answers.
My question is directed to Architect Ramani. I just wanted to ask you if it's possible for the IIA to engage with the government to have a north-south. While planning this infrastructure, it's my personal observation that a lot of the scale of this infrastructure is not relevant to the size of our population in Goa, but small changes within the infrastructure, like the north-south highway that we're having. What if we plan for a cycling path while we are building the highways, and also a dedicated bus lane? So maybe we don't need such big flyovers, but the highway, the infrastructure can be planned differently, specifically with cycling infrastructure.
Yeah, I got. See, it's basically that's what I think I covered this point when I said is need and greed. This point is basically understanding is that there might be certain strategic requirements in terms of national highways and everything, in terms of widths and everything. But the best way, I think there is a solution in what you're talking only, is that how to use the same infrastructure, in a better way, so that, you can use it as a cycling track, you can use it, you have to divide the entire carriageway and the right of way so that you get. Now, we were discussing this also, is that even the places below the bridges, you're creating a lot of shaded areas, everything. So I think the environmental impact assessment and the post, impact study and the mitigation of that, I think the mitigative measures of any project is where things start failing. And those mitigative measures, and those by mitigative measures, I don't mean only physical measures. These are all social measures, economic measures, rehabilitation measures. We are talking of division of giving people who lose something because of the project, give them importance, give them a meaning and contributory thing that you are being looked into. So I think even this signal that goes into, is very important. Some people who have lost their house, what do you do for them? This sort of that comes in the social cost benefit analysis. See, one is the analytical part of it. Second is the mitigative part of it. And the mitigative part has to be designed, interpreting all the analytics of this and taken. I think once the project is over, that's over. We have euphoria and everything is left for nature to settle down.
I want to ask the minister, this point has been constantly coming. Do you feel that the present scale of development that is going on in Goa is too much for our state?
I think we tend to get a little confused at times. One thing is, from the Stone Age or from the caveman, we are modern times. And it's time that we move on to ultra-modern times. We have to keep with the pace of development which takes place in the whole world as a whole, while taking care of the environment, while taking care of pollution of all sorts, including air pollution. Now, you just spoke, Mr. Ramani just said about some people losing the houses, or then how do you mitigate that? Just for records, I want to state, if you look at the flyover which comes with the new Zuari bridge that is coming up, you have a huge flyover right from Kortalim which goes up till Verna Point, that is near Sharayu Motors, simply because we do not want a single house to be demolished, and not a single house was demolished. So while we have the highway coming up, and it is in keeping tune with the national policy of having good highways all across the length and breadth of the country for freer movement, we have taken care that no houses are demolished. So the impact, the social impact is at the bare minimal. Costs may have escalated in that direction, and precisely to keep the people's interest at heart, we have seen that this huge flyover we have been able to build. I want to say another thing. Here, we should definitely be concerned about air pollution. In life, it is all about balancing growth, about balancing development, about balancing the pollution levels. As you develop, there is bound to be some sort of pollution. How to control it, to what extent it can be controlled, one has to strike a balance. In today's age, one in fact has to be concerned. Of course, it is far beyond what we are going to say. We are talking of air pollution or pollution taking place in this world. Today, with launch of so many satellites, debris in space, the space is getting polluted. So again, it's the whole universe which is getting polluted. So we have reached different levels altogether when we look at pollution per se. And talking of air pollution, yes, it is a concern. It is to be readdressed, and steps are being taken to readdress that.
I have a contradict here. See, basically, the question is not there. I would look at, I don't want to personally, attribute anything to L&T here, but I'm just giving you an example. L&T Bridge, Mandovi, and L&T doing work in the Middle East. Would you find a difference in the callous attitude which is there in Goa and which they do a project abroad? This is what I'm referring to. Here people are taken for granted. Means everything it is the same organization, same methodology, same people, but when they do in an environment where they feel that no one is going to be bothered about it. Fortunately, just before the rains, everything has been done up. But the amount of hours, man hours lost, amount of breakage of cars, amount of pollution that has happened, amount of dust that has moved around, it could have been mitigated if it was done responsibly. And why I'm raising this point is because the same organization, if it had done it in the West, they would have done it. So they are capable of doing it.
Professor Edgar Ribeiro has a question.
I just want to raise one issue on environmental impact assessment. I used to be a member of that committee many years ago. The problem, the way I see it, Mr. Minister, is that the central government used to ask the people who put in the project to include an environmental assessment report. I know we were very padded up, and it was supporting the work put in by the people who were putting up the activity. It is more important, I feel, for the Ministry of Environment or the Department of Environment of the state governments to have an independent environmental impact assessment report. It's just a suggestion which I would like you all to take away from this. I think that's extremely important. You shouldn't leave it to the people because they're bound to be fudged. The second point is, in view of what's been happening in the country with water shortages, lots of things which are coming out on TV is the concretization. Land is a very scarce resource in India. And I think we have to be very conscious of less concretization. And I want to raise a small point of so many schemes coming up, housing schemes. In the old days, the principle was very clear that you have 1/3 built up, 1/3 hard surfaces, 1/3 soft surfaces. Today, if you look at most housing schemes, whether it is Goa or elsewhere, the soft surfaces have disappeared. And I think that's quite a dangerous thing that's happening. From this small thing, you build up the larger things. So I just thought I'd mention these 2 points.
Thank you all for giving us so many takeaways today. I'll end with a single statement that let us be a part of solution and not pollution. Thank you.